Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first of a series of live events on plugin development for Obsidian. I'm so happy to have you, especially because today marks the start of Obsidian October, a month-long event where we get together and we create amazing things for Obsidian. I'm Marcus, and I will be the host throughout the month. I've been working as a software developer for more than 10 years, and today I help companies create educational resources for other developers. And that's why I couldn't resist documenting my own journey when I learned how to build a plugin during last year's Obsidian October. The result was a documentation site that plugin developers can hop onto and learn how to build plugins. You can find it in the description below if you want to check it out already. I hope that you pay attention to this presentation first, though. Through this series, not only will you learn how to build and develop plugins from me, but you'll also get to meet and learn from our weekly guest speakers as well. And so the only thing that you need to participate in Obsidian October is to submit a plugin for review anytime during October. So it doesn't matter if it's something that you've been working on for a while or you're just starting this October. So as long as you submit it for review during this month, you're fine. The second thing you need to do is that you need to register using the submission form that we will send out later this month. So keep a lookout for that one. So while we are going to focus on plugins for this series of live events, it's not the only thing that you can submit. In fact, there's a wide range of categories that you can participate in. You can create videos, you can create written content, and your own vaults. Anything goes. So there's going to be awards, there's going to be prizes, and for each of these categories, we will select 3 lucky winners and 3 that are based on the overall quality of the submission. So super excited about that. And we also have a theme for this month. So it's back to school. So what that means is that if you create something that has value to students specifically, then you will be eligible for additional set of prizes. So for example, the best creation for graduate students. Super excited about that as well. If you get stuck anytime during the month, you can get help on our Discord server, specifically in the Obsidian October 2022 channel. You can also get help on the forum. And if you aren't already there, you can join by visiting obsidian.com/community. So that's pretty much it when it comes to just welcoming you all to a full month of exciting stuff. This is just the first event. We will be doing events every single week at this time on Saturdays. So be sure to check in. But today, I'm going to show you how to get started with building a plugin. And this is kind of the setup it's going to look like for the future events as well, where I'm going to do a short tutorial on an aspect of plugin development. And then I'm going to invite on a guest speaker for the last half of the presentation. So stay with me. Okay, let's see how we can create a plugin then. So first off, what do I need to get started? What do I need to install on my laptop, right? Well, the first thing, as you probably guessed by now, you need a code editor. Which one doesn't really matter. My personal favorite is Visual Studio Code. And if you haven't one already, I think it's an excellent choice to start with. Second, you'll need to install something called Node.js if you haven't already done that. And that is what's responsible for building and running your plugin in Obsidian. So be sure that you install that. And third, Well, this is not really a requirement, but we strongly recommend that you also install Git. Git is a version control system that helps you manage changes to your plugin. So, for example, if you introduce a bug in one version, you can quickly revert to a previous version of your plugin and re-release that one. And another important thing is that if you want to submit, which I hope you do, your plugin to the repository, or the make it public essentially, so that everyone can use it, then you're gonna need a GitHub account. So you can sign up at github.com if you haven't already. And finally, it will really help if you have some basic knowledge of TypeScript, which is the programming language that you'll be using to build plugins. If you have experience of JavaScript, you're well on your way. You can fill in the gaps, so to speak. Awesome. So if you have these pieces set, then you're good to go. The next step is, where do I learn how to build a plugin? Other than this presentation right here, I strongly suggest that you go to the For Plugin Developers page on, let's see here, on the Obsidian Hub. So I am going to share my screen here and show you what's all about. So on Obsidian Hub, you can find this excellent plugin developer resource page that you can use to get started. And what else is, I'm gonna come back to my presentation here. One excellent resource I recommend is, I'm a little biased because I wrote it myself, but the unofficial plugin documentation. And so if you go here, you'll find a full documentation page with resources for how to get started. And I highly recommend you checking that out. So what's the next step? Well, it turns out that the Obsidian team has been kind enough to create a sample plugin that you can use to get started. And let's check it out. So if you go to Obsidian MD, Obsidian sample plugin, you'll come to this page. So this is a GitHub repository that you can use to build your own project using this one as a template. And that's what we'll do. So I will click this Use This Template button. What happens then is that I get an option to create my own project from this template. And well, let's say Obsidian Spooky, because it's October and Halloween is coming up. So why not? Create repository from template. And this is going to create a repository on your user account. And bam, you have now created a plugin project on your GitHub account based on the template from the sample plugin. This is a great start. So the next thing we want to do is to actually download this sample plugin to your own machine. And to do that, you can click this button that says code. You can copy the URL to your repository here. Next thing, we'll go to our code editor. So let's switch to Visual Studio Code. So if you're not familiar with Visual Studio Code, you can find all the files in a folder on the left side here. And you can find a terminal down at the bottom. And in the middle here, you will see the code eventually. So I have open here the same vault that you saw earlier. You can see that there's a folder called .obsidian in my vault here as well that contains a little settings for Obsidian. So we'll put our plugin there for now. Let's see. So one comment that I will make here is that I highly recommend that you create a separate Obsidian vault for your plugin development. And the reason being that if you're developing a plugin and you introduce a bug that accidentally removes the entire folder of notes, you're not going to want to do that in your main vault. So highly recommend having a separate vault for doing all sorts of plugin development to avoid unpleasant surprises. And so I will use this vault to download my code. And the first thing I need to do is, because Obsidian expects a folder with plugins inside this .obsidian one. So I'm going ahead and creating a plugins folder inside here. This is where we'll put our plugins and where you will install all of your plugin, essentially. So the next thing is that we want to download the project that we created on GitHub to this plugin folder. So let's go in there and we're going to run git clone with the URL that we copied before. So that's going to ask you to authenticate possibly. And there it is. We've downloaded the code for the example plugin, and we can see it here to the left. Let's make that a little bigger. So the first thing you'll see is that there's a lot of files in here. And don't worry, you won't need to look in most of them. But there's a few of them that I'm going to cover that you might be interested in. And the first one being the package.json file. So this file contains, it's pretty much the project file for your plugin. So this contains general information about where to find the code, what dependencies your plugin are relying on. So one dependency to note is the Obsidian one here. So as you use more dependencies out there, maybe there's already an excellent library out there that you want to use, you can add it here to your dependencies. So this is not Obsidian specific. This is a Node.js file. So that you will find plenty of documentation on the internet. Let's look at the next file, the manifest.json. This, however, is an Obsidian-specific file. This is a manifest of your plugin. This file explains to Obsidian some important information about your plugin. For example, an ID that is unique among all the plugins that are out there. So make sure to pick a really unique name and make sure that there is not already a plugin that has been published with the same ID. Next thing is we want to set our own name. And I'm going to call this the spooky plugin. I'm also going to change the ID here. Next line is the version. So every time you make a major change, for example, you want to release a new version of your plugin. And this is how you roll it out to your users. And the line 5 here is a more interesting one. It is the minimum version of Obsidian required to run your plugin. So what does that mean? Well, let's say that Obsidian introduced a whole set of new API functions in a new version, and you want to be able to use them. But that means that people installing your plugin on a previous version of Obsidian won't be able to use it. It will probably crash. So instead here, you can set what's the minimum version of Obsidian that your plugin requires to run. You can set a description, some information about who you are. If you have a website, put it in here so people can find you. And finally, on line 9, you can choose whether you want people to be able to install this on a mobile device. So let's say that you have a plugin that maybe doesn't do well on mobile. So you want to disable that and make it only available on a desktop. So in this case, I want everyone to be able to install my spooky plugin. So I'm going to leave this as false. So the next thing I'm going to look at is the main.ts file. And this is where the cool stuff is. This is where the heart of the plugin is. And the first thing you'll notice is that you got these, at least if you're using Visual Studio Code, these red squiggly lines. And what does that mean? That means that there's an error here. And the reason why they're red is that right now, the editor cannot find these functions because we haven't installed them. And these specific ones are from Obsidian, and we haven't actually downloaded the dependencies that we saw in the package.json file. So we'll do that now. You can do that by going to the folder and then running npm install. And what that will do is that it looks at this list of dependencies, and it will download all of them into a folder here on the side called node modules. So once that's done, hopefully those red squiggly lines will be gone. So let's wait until all of it is downloaded. Perfect. You can, just for the sake of it, let's look in here. You can see that we have a bunch of new folders in here with our dependencies. If we go back to main.ts, you'll see now that the red squiggly lines are gone and we're ready to go. So let's build this plugin, because the first thing we need to do now is that we need to convert this into something that Obsidian understands. And we do that using a command called npm run dev. So what that's going to do is that it's going to take this main.ts file, and it's going to generate this main.js file. And you can see a bunch of stuff in here that has been converted into a more efficient representation of your code. And this file is what Obsidian actually uses to load your plugin. Very cool. So let's see if we can actually get this into our vault. So I'm going to switch to the vault. We have it right here. And so I should actually be able to install that plugin, right? So I have it right here. I can see my sample plugin here right now, and I can enable it. So when I did that, you'll see that there's a little icon popping up here, sample plugin. That's a ribbon action that we got there, right there. And if I click it, you'll see a little notice up in the corner. So this is one of the features that are in the sample plugin. And what we want to do now is maybe, we've enabled the plugin and we want to be able to make changes to it. So what we want to do then is that we go back to our main.ts file, and we want to make a change here. And before I do that, I want you to look at the bottom of this window. You see that it says build finished, watching for changes. And so what that means is that this command is actually continuously running, looking for changes to the code. So if I now look at, let's see if we can find the ribbon action here. There it is. So this is a good notice. And when I do that, you saw that build started and build finished. So this script actually rebuilt my plugin, and now it's got a new version here. So let's see if we can check that out. And if we click it again. So you see, this is just a regular notice. I want the good notice, right? But it's not here. If I click it again, no difference. And the reason for that is that to be able to load the new version of the plugin, you need to disable and enable it. So we're going to do that again. We're going to go here and hit disable the plugin. And you saw that it kind of disappeared from the list here. We're going to enable it again and then close this window. Now, if I click it, you'll see that this is indeed a good notice. Cool, huh? So that's pretty much it. If you want to make changes to your sample plugin, make a change in the main.ts file, and then it will automatically build it if you're using the npm run dev command. But I want to go a step further because, at least to me, the annoying thing about making a change, going in here, disabling it, enabling it back again, closing it, and trying it out, it's annoying. I don't really much like doing that. I like it when it's fast. So I like using a plugin called Hot Reload by PJ Ebby. And this is not a published plugin as far as I know, but I really like it. And I'll show you why. So you can go to the GitHub page here. You can press code. You can copy that. And then we can install that the same way that we did before with our plugin. I'm going to cancel this command. I'm going to go back into the plugins folder, and I'm going to do a git clone on that one. Now that that's downloaded, we can go here and see that we indeed have two plugins here. And the next step is to actually enable it. So if I go to my list of plugins, I can enable this Hot Reload plugin. And the beauty here now, nothing happens right now, but what the Hot Reload plugin does is that it looks inside the plugins folder for any plugin with a Git that is a Git repository, and then listens for changes to that and reloads that plugin. Sounds magical. So I'm going to show it to you instead. So first thing, I'm going to go back to the spooky plugin here. I'm going to start listening for changes and rebuilding my plugin whenever it happens. And so now I want a better notice. And you saw that here, the build finished. And so before I had to disable it, right? But now when I go back, hopefully now, this is a live demo. I hope this is a better one. Yes, it is. So this is indeed a better notice than the one we had before. That's pretty cool. So I made a change. The npm script rebuilt my plugin, and the Hot Reload plugin reloaded it inside Obsidian. So it makes it really easy now to do something like this, where you can, let's see if we can put these side by side. And I can now have a really quick development cycle where I can make changes. This is a great notice. And when I save here, it will build, and then it automatically reloads. And if I click that again, you'll see that it's a great notice. So this is kind of how I work when I build plugins. I have the code editor side by side with my Obsidian Vault that I'm testing it in. And so the next thing that I want to do is that, you know, when you're just starting out with plugin development, this looks like a lot. You know, if you look at this file, it's rather long. It's more than 150 lines of code. And I just want to show you that it doesn't have to be this much if you don't want it to be. So instead, I'm going to rip out the guts from this plugin. And I'm going to see if I can disable a few of these things. So what do we want else? No, this we don't need at all. So I'm going to remove. We don't need settings for this little plugin that we're building. And I'm removing that. And we have a few unused imports here. So I'm going to remove them. And what we have essentially is a very minimal plugin that is only an onload and an on-unload method. And these are essentially hooks where you can run code whenever the plugin is enabled or disabled. So here, for example, I'm going to say that I enabled the spooky plugin. And I'm going to do the same thing here, where I say I'm disabling it, right? And you can see now that suddenly things started to happen here in the background. So if I didn't want this to be in there, for example. I hit save, and you can see now that indeed it's running. So I urge you to strip down the sample plugin unless you want to understand all the parts of it. I like to strip down things to their bare minimum and then add one little thing at a time. So in this case, we added the notices. There's plenty of stuff that you can add to your plugin. We're going to look at how to accept user input next week. So for things like commands, ribbon actions, you're going to learn how to build your own modal to accept user input. But that's next week. So for now, I hope this is a great place for you to start experimenting with building a plugin. And I really hope that you check out the documentation site and all the resources that I've linked in the description down below. And yeah, I really hope that you start experimenting, and that I'll see you again next week. But don't leave just yet. I'm gonna take a short break, and then I'm gonna come back with a guest speaker, whom I'm very excited to chat with. So don't leave unless you're filling up on coffee. We'll be right back.